now.
Welcome to the webinar on the development of life skills. This webinar was created by the school counselors of Capistrano Unified School District. You'll receive a copy of these slides at the end of our presentation, and this webinar will be recorded and the video will be available on the district website in a few weeks. The presenters tonight are Lindsay Morris, that's me, discussing brain development, Georgina Flores, discussing elementary school, Loria Vakian, discussing middle school, Michelle Sides, discussing high school, and Claudia Ortega Sanchez will be our Spanish interpreter. Answering questions in the Q&A box, we have Jenna Perry, Jessica Beauvais, Jessica Sandoval, and Kathy Ketchum. Our objective tonight is to provide you with information regarding brain development and how it impacts future success, how to help your child manage their emotions, how you can promote your child's academic achievement, and tools and strategies to assist with your child's growth and success. First, we want to give you some information about the prefrontal cortex. The skills we'll be talking about today are skills that are developed in the frontal lobe of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. This area of the brain continues to grow until we're in our mid-20s. It mostly helps with executive functioning, which supports lifelong success. And this next slide helps to explain what executive functioning is. So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for executive functioning, which is planning, focusing our attention, remembering instructions, these are our short-term memory, juggling multiple tasks. Now, when the prefrontal cortex is less developed, then you've got like your kindergartner, right? Who is making cookies and they have to stop to measure out every single ingredient. As you get older and your prefrontal cortex is more developed, you're able to juggle multiple tasks in a better, more efficient way, which is why as adults, we're able to prepare dinner while having a full conversation and helping our kids with their homework kind of all at the same time. It also helps us to link past to present. So this is how we make decisions based on previous events, like knowing don't touch the curling iron because last time you touched it, it burned you. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for executive functioning, which can be summed up into two core functions, which are organization and regulation. Organization are skills that help you complete a task. So that's the attention and planning from the previous slide, but also putting things in the right order. Like a kindergartner is learning you put on socks before you put on shoes, where a senior is understanding we're enrolling in the SAT prep course, we're taking the PSAT, we take the SAT, we apply for college. And so there's a lot more steps, but they're able to remember what step comes first. Also under organization, problem solving and like abstract thinking or thinking outside the box, being able to be creative in our solutions, and understanding rules, which includes unspoken rules like you gotta wear pants when you leave the house. The other category is in regulation, which are the skills that help us maintain healthy relationships, kind of more internal skills. And this is going to be managing emotions. Like in kindergarten, we learn we don't hit when we're angry. It's also monitoring internal and external stimuli. So right now, you're processing the feeling of the clothes on your body and the temperature and the lighting situation in your home, as well as the sound of my voice and the images on the screen right now. And your brain is filtering out the things that are not necessary for you right now. Regulation also includes modifying your behavior based on the situation, like how we whisper in libraries and movie theaters, but we're really loud at sports games. And also regulation includes making choices based on ethics and morals. Now, remember, children up until old age, we learn and we practice and we use these skills every single day. Now, damage to the prefrontal cortex can be caused by drug and alcohol exposure at a young age. It can be caused by accidents that result in traumatic brain injury, like a car accident or a severe concussion, or sometimes like sporting accidents. It can also be caused by exposure to trauma at an early age, which impacts brain development, which could be a contentious divorce, abuse, having a terminally ill family member. Now, remember, this sounds scary, but remember that healing from trauma also impacts brain development. Now, if the prefrontal cortex is damaged, it can lead to your child having difficulty getting started on their own, and then getting and staying organized. It would be really hard for them to multitask, kind of deferring down to that, having to do one task at a time. They might have trouble planning for their future long term, but also planning out assignments at home. This would look like if they have 3 assignments to do and one is due tomorrow and then 2 are due next week, having a hard time remembering that the one due tomorrow needs to be done first. It might also look like difficulty processing information and also retrieving information, like being able to tell you what somebody said at school that day. You might also be seeing mood swings or a lack of concern for people and animals, or especially with concussions, we see this a lot, a temporary kind of loss in interest in activities. You might also see a child who is unable to understand when their behavior is a problem or how it's a problem. So now that you understand the function of the prefrontal cortex, we are going to take a deeper dive into the things you might be seeing with your own children, and we are going to start with elementary school.
Thank you, Lindsay. My name is Georgina Flores, and I am an elementary school counselor. And we're going to be covering elementary school level, which is ages 5 to 11. Let's go into academic skills first. So getting started with academic skills and what is learned in these grades, kindergarten through 5th grade, we start with foundational learning skills that are essential skills all students will need in order to become successful learners and lifelong successful adults. So these skills are introduced by your children's teachers starting in kindergarten, and school counselors come in and reinforce these skills with lessons that we teach, again, starting in kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. On the right side of the screen, you can see the poster that says Skills for Learning, and these are the core areas that we cover on this topic, which are focusing our attention, listening, being assertive, and using self-talk. So in these grades, visual reminders and social cues play an important role in reminding students what the expected behaviors are. They are learning what is expected, what is unexpected. The teachers and counselors are reinforcing these skills. And teachers might do things like remind students why it's important for them to raise their hand and avoid distractions. And students are also learning how to self-regulate their bodies during these years in order to listen better and using their bodies to their advantage by, focusing their attention by using their ears, their eyes, and having calm bodies so that they are able to focus better and learn. And so an example of this that you might hear or see is that teachers will say, eyes are watching, ears are listening, voices are off, and bodies are still. And lastly, students are learning the importance of asking for help. So this plays into that using self-talk and being assertive. They are learning that it's important to be their own advocate, and it's an important skill that's going to help them be successful, throughout life. So now going into 4th and 5th grade specifically, in these grades, students are working on improving and continuing to practice those active listening skills, which again include using their eyes, ears, and bodies to listen and learn. And they're also learning to stay organized and use things like an agenda or homework planner to help them stay on task and manage their time better. And so these are important foundational skills that help students balance their workload and homework completion while, keeping a low level of stress. And this will help them long-term with their jobs and their lives in general. And teachers and counselors are reinforcing these skills by, teaching them that, they have to have a schedule laid out for them. They typically come into the classrooms and see their schedule on the board written out in front of them. And teachers are encouraging them to use their planners at home. Parents are also, checking in to make sure they have all their assignments written down. And assertiveness is another important skill that's taught at this grade, can continue to be taught. So again, they're learning to communicate their needs and what is going to help them learn better. So moving into the next slide, which is academic skills, we are going to look at ways that you can help them at home. So now that you have an idea of what the foundational skills are for your children with regard to learning, let's focus on what you can do. So as far as active listening skills, kids are like sponges. I'm sure you have all heard this by now. And so whatever they're seeing in the world around them is what they are absorbing and learning to basically redo. And so you as the parents at home are really modeling that for them. So it's important to role model active listening skills at home. And the way you can do this is by giving the person that you're talking to your full attention as best as you can. It's easier said than done, but trying your best to give your full attention, maintaining good eye contact, allowing the person that you're talking to finish what they're saying without interrupting them, and also repeating back what the person is saying to you in your own words to make sure that you are showing understanding. So you can practice this with your child. When they're explaining something to you, you can repeat back in your own words what they're saying to make sure that you heard it correctly. As far as being assertive, you can help your child self-advocate by helping them identify what they need. And so that way they get the support that they need at school and at home. So teaching them how to express their needs, how to identify their needs, by just asking them questions, asking them what could help them learn better at school, what distractions they're experiencing. And that gets them thinking about, their surroundings and their style of learning. And so you can help praising your child's efforts to speak up and ask for help if they have a distraction in the classroom or if they need help from their teacher. Encourage them to raise their hand or to speak to the teacher in private about what is going on. And at the younger age levels, you will probably want to be more involved as a parent by reaching out to the teacher, communicating with your student's counselor. Because at kindergarten through third grade, they're maybe going to have a little more trouble doing that, but fourth and fifth, you can encourage them to do it on their own and step in if needed. And then time management skills. So with this, you can have your child write down their assignments, making sure that they are in their planner and teaching them how to work backward from a due date, and also chunking their assignments into smaller portions. So rather than looking at the big picture, project that they have and feeling overwhelmed by that, you can teach them that they can chunk it up and do a little bit day by day or, within a certain time period and then have a break. These are going to help them, those kinds of skills are going to help them plan out, their daily organization better. And that moves into organizational skills. Checklists are a great way to help your child keep organized. And so you can create checklists with them. And this can be anywhere from checklists for chores, checklists for homework, checklists for what items they need every day for school. And you'll see on the slides actually that there are live links in the blue. And so if we click on the checklist slide, you'll see that it says morning checklist here. And those links will take you to a live page where you can access more information. So this is a morning checklist example for items that your child might need in the morning before school, what they need to do. And there's plenty of examples online that you can access for free. So now that we covered academic skills, we are going to talk about self-regulation skills. And this is another important area that we address in elementary school level in grades kindergarten through fifth grade. Starting with our poster that all kids are familiar with, which is the calm down poster. And it says, stop, name your feeling, and calm down. So these are really what is being reiterated to them throughout their grade school years, starting with deep breathing, counting, using positive self-talk. And the main focus of these skills is to basically help them calm down their bodies by practicing these skills, because without being calm, they won't be able to think clearly and make better choices. So we are teaching them that in order to think clearly and to manage their reactions and emotions, and keep themselves from acting impulsively, it's really important to stop and take a deep breath and calm down. So going into our next slide, how you can help at home, because I'm sure that is why you're here. You want to know ways that you can help your child manage their emotions when they are out of control at home, right? Especially in these years, kindergarten through 5th grade, they are really learning about themselves, and they have a hard time. And so parents are the people that they are, again, learning from. And so you play a big role in modeling emotion management to them. So one way you can help is by encouraging your child to practice mindfulness. And there is a lot of great research behind mindfulness. Basically, it is just being present in the moment and, noticing things that are in your body, like your breathing, noticing things around you. And rather than focusing on the past or the future, you're focusing in that present moment. So when your child becomes overwhelmed or stressed out or frustrated, you can help them, by breathing and noticing their breathing. And that is what makes mindfulness so great, is that there are ways you could do this, such as by having your child lie down and put a stuffed animal on their belly and just watching that stuffed animal go up and down and seeing how their breath moves the stuffed animal. Also, you can just have them put their hands on their belly and just have them fill up their belly with air, through their nose, breathe in, and then let it out through their mouth, and just feel their body breathing and feel their heart rate calming down, especially after being frustrated and upset. It's a good way to help them realize, hey, look, you took a deep breath or a few deep breaths. Now your heart rate is slower, your body is calmer, you're not hyperventilating and panicking, and you can think clearly now. And so saying that and putting it into words for them really helps them grasp the concept versus just basically telling them, okay, take a deep breath, you're out of control, right? Help them understand the concept. And then focusing their attention. The way that you can do this is by going on an outdoor walk and taking a minute to just stop and be silent and listen to the sounds around them. And this is just going to make them more aware of their surroundings and of themselves and what they are thinking in that moment and focusing on things around them. You can also have them notice their heart rate again when they're upset compared to when they're calm. And so this style of focusing attention will help them overall with focusing their attention because they're going to be more self-aware. And then lastly, encouraging your child to take mental and physical breaks. So when they're overwhelmed or when you notice that they're frustrated or doing something challenging, encourage them to just stop and take a break, because if kids continue to push themselves, sometimes they don't know when to stop. And then that's when they get out of control and emotional. So letting them know that it's okay to just stop and take a break, right? As adults, we need to do this too. And so whether that's playing some music and having a little dance session, or, stopping to just doodle or make some art or stretch, or just have a relaxing scent near you to kind of give yourself that mental break, that's really going to help them calm their bodies down so that when they're in school or in another area, they can be aware of, okay, you know what, I'm getting overwhelmed. I can stop and just take a few moments to breathe. So now that we have covered elementary school, we are now going to go into middle school. Lori, your mic.
Thank you, Georgina. I am Lori Avakian. I am a middle school counselor for our school district, and I'm going to talk to you about academic skills. At this level, there's a lot going on with middle schoolers. First of all, it's a time of tremendous growth. And what we learned about with the prefrontal cortex is that is also developing at an amazing rate. So what the kids are learning at middle school is, one, becoming a lifelong learner. And we want them to learn that. We promote that because we want them to start to take charge of their education and realize that life offers lots of educational opportunities, not just in school. Along with the prefrontal cortex development, their ability to plan and organize is also increasing. And the beauty of the prefrontal cortex development at this age is kids are also claiming more individual responsibility for themselves. So these are three main areas where kids are developing skills, but also their prefrontal cortex development is allowing them to learn these skills at this age. So let's think about how parents can help while, excuse me, while they have more ability to plan, to organize, and to be working on their own. They often don't have those skills yet. They're completely nascent at this point. So in order to work independently, you have to be able to work independently. You have to be motivated to work independently, and you have to have a good method for work independently. So what parents can do to help bolster these skills is create homework systems and routines that will become internalized by your student as they continue to practice these homework routines. So creating a homework system and a homework routine might be as simple as we do our homework from 4 to 5 every day, and we do it in this place. And that we can also set aside that time so that kids know that this is what's happening at this time. We can also help them break down larger projects into smaller parts. One, so that they don't get overwhelmed, but two, so that they learn how to do that for themselves and work back from the due date and work back from a due date so that they know what they need to do on any particular day, and will be able to get things done in a timely fashion without stressing themselves out. Again, a dedicated space to work is really helpful. If your child does not have his or her own bedroom or a desk to work at, something that works really well for kids this age is to do the homework at the kitchen table. You as a parent can be around to help them, where hopefully the child is doing a lot of the work on their own by this age, but they still need support in their parents' presence. So the parent can be there just to nudge them to continue, or to be able to say, take a 5-minute break and then come back and work for another 15 minutes, or to be on call for, I don't know, a struggle or a question a student might have. So working at the kitchen table is often helpful, one, because more than one child can sit there, and two, parents can be in the same room doing what they need to do, whether it's making dinner or paying the bills or something else, some other task that needs doing. So the child is working independently, but there's the support of the parent there as well. I would also show your child to how to use the planner. At middle school, we use we call it a reminder binder at my school, but you can say planner, agenda, and ask to see it. Ask to see how they're using it. At middle school, the teacher often has either the whole week or the day's assignments and requirements on the board, and they ask kids to write these things down. This is, again, the practice for using it so that they get in the habit of writing things down. There's nothing like a to-do list to keep you on track. Show your kids your own planner, your own to-do list, and make it a family habit by having the family calendar someplace in a public room, or having a whiteboard on the refrigerator where you can write down to-do things, having the grocery list available so that they might be able to add items as well. Again, they're going to do what you do, and they're going to model themselves after you. So if you are in the habit of using a planner, an agenda, a to-do list, post-it notes, whatever the method is, show them what you're doing as well and incorporate it into your family functioning, and they will pick it up pretty easily. The to-do list is actually really, really organizing and structuring for our kids and for their brains. when you write something down, even if you end up not looking at it again, say you write down your shopping list, go to the grocery store, and then never look at the shopping list again, you will remember more items on that shopping list simply because you had written it down. There's some magic between writing things down and the brain remembering what needs to be done. So have them get in the habit of writing things down and using their to-do list or their checklist. Also, since they are not fully independent at this time, it's really important that we monitor their grades. This is a really tricky middle ground. We want parents to be aware what's happening with their kids' schoolwork in middle school and to monitor and, get involved, but not be too helpful, not coddle too much. So one way that you can really monitor what's going on is to be a parent observer on Canvas, which is our school learning management system. So if you click the monitor button, it'll bring you to a graphic like this, and it will show you step by step how you can sign up to become a parent observer on Canvas. And when you have the ability to do that, you can see not only what your child is being asked to do, what the assignments are, but when did they pass it in, the points they received, and any teacher comments the teacher might have written in the sidebar, like please redo this, or redo this for a higher grade, or great job. It's really good to know what's going on with your kids' academics. Any problems or concerns, please contact your child's teacher or the school counselor if there's something happening academically that is unclear to you or is confusing or seems wrong. Always contact the teacher first, and if that doesn't clear it up, then please feel free to contact your school counselor as well. Self-regulation. Since this is a time of tremendous physical growth for our children, middle school, we have kids anywhere from ages 11 to 14 on our campus. It's a wide range of abilities and a wide range of maturity at school. So along with this tremendous growth comes an increased self-awareness. And that is good in terms of kids being able to adapt to their surroundings and be flexible. Sometimes it leads to, or I should say oftentimes leads to, an increase in self-consciousness often. And so kids tend to get anxious as well at this age. How I look, who my friends are, what people think about me. The social aspect of anxiety tends to kick into high gear because they don't know who they are yet, and they're trying to figure themselves out. Along with the tremendous physical growth comes a better ability to focus their attention and control their attention as well. Emotional support, they're getting a little better at supporting themselves, supporting others emotionally, and soothing themselves and doing problem solving. But again, all of this is still in its infancy. We do a lot through our second step lessons in the classroom and through the teacher interaction and our rules at school with promoting these skills, these self-regulation skills. So much at school teaches us just how to be present, how to get along with others, and how to be connected to others, as well as all of the academics that we're learning as well. So this is a time of incredible change, and there's a lot that's happening. It's never smooth. Middle school is going to be bumpy. That's the point of it. We are transitioning from childhood into adolescence and toward adulthood. And transitions are always difficult and always have multiple adjustments that need to be made. So how can parents help? The first and foremost, the most important thing you can do for your child in terms of helping them regulate their emotions is to make sure they're getting enough sleep. They need a lot of sleep at this age, and sleep research is telling us that kids this age need between 9 and 10 hours a night. So if there is one thing that you do for your child at this age, make sure that they're going to bed at a relatively normal time. So if they need to get up at 7, make sure that they're having lights out at 10 o'clock at night. And one way to promote that is to just take away all the devices and the phone, the computer, the iPad, the game box, Xbox thing. Make sure that's not in the room when it's time to sleep. If they're telling you that they're doing homework, then we need to talk about the homework schedule and what else is going on, so that they can get their homework done in a timely fashion and not be up past 10 o'clock at night doing homework. I think also as a parent, you can pull the plug on homework too. And you could say, that's enough for tonight, and we'll just pick it up tomorrow morning. And I'm your mom, and don't worry, I'll make sure it's okay and we get things done. I'll help you tomorrow, but now is the time for sleep. You can also model healthy coping strategies. Again, they're going to do what we do, not what we say. So if we're asking them to remain calm and collected when they're upset, but we are not, and I don't think that we're perfect by any means, but parents, you really need to make an effort to model healthy coping. So if you're upset and you need, you're going to get upset and you can tell this conversation is going to go south, you can say to them, I need a timeout. I'm going to go take a timeout in my room for a few minutes, or I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to call a friend and step out into the backyard for a few minutes. So name it, I'm feeling upset, and then what you're going to do. And they will catch on and they will imitate that as well. So modeling healthy coping strategies is really key. And part of that is identifying and naming your own emotions. Practice pausing and breathing before responding. Show your kids that they don't have to react right away. They can take their time. They can pause and think for a moment, and they can even pause and say, I don't know, I'll get back to you about that, or I'm not sure right now. Again, pausing is huge in terms of short-circuiting any arguments or angry reactions that might not be helpful at that time. Encourage physical activity, but also make sure your kids are not overscheduled. I'm not sure that's a problem these days while we continue to do so much distance learning on our computer, but make sure they're getting enough physical activity. We're sitting in front of the computer for longer than we ever have before. And one way kids de-stress is to play video games. And while that is legitimate, they also need to work off the tension in their bodies and, just promote that endorphin release that we get from exercise. So make sure that they're getting enough physical activity. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to be, enrolled in a sports program. And I'm not even sure how many sports programs are going on at the moment, but it can be something as simple as kicking a ball against the garage door or taking the dog for a walk around the block. But just make sure that they're outside and moving at some point during the day, every day. Spend one-on-one time with them. This is actually pretty important at this age. They are still dependent on us emotionally. Our kids are dependent on their parents emotionally and are not able to problem solve the way we would like them to, or the way they would like to be able to at this time. And having some regular setup one-on-one time, whether it's, we're in the car for 30 minutes every week when we go to visit grandma, or that on Saturday morning, we always go out to garage sales together. It doesn't have to be a formal thing that you do. We sit and we talk, but just have regular one-on-one time with your kids. And when they know that they can count on that one-on-one time, they will open up. They will start to talk, and they'll start to communicate things like, you know, my friend said something mean at lunch today and I got upset, but I'm afraid if I say anything. And so there you go. Now you're off. Important not to be too judgmental or to jump in too quickly when they start talking to you, but to really listen, use your active listening, reflect what they're feeling, reflect what they're saying. And you can also say things to them like, are you just venting now? Or do you want to help thinking about this situation? Because sometimes they really just want to talk out loud, or they just want you to know what's going on with their lives, and they're not really asking for you to step in and solve the issue. So spending a one-on-one time is really important, and helping them to identify the positive when you're with them, the positives about themselves, the positives about a difficult situation, and just being able to see those silver linings that are there even when it doesn't feel like it. Important to also to notice the positives in them and the growth that they are making. Whether it's something simple like, I really notice that you stick with things when things get tough. How do you do that? Or I really like the friend choices that you've made. Giving them the appropriate amount of praise for their actions, their behaviors is very encouraging and very gratifying for them. And you can expect to see more of that if they know that you're noticing. So that's one way parents can help their children self-regulate. We're going to move on to high school now.
Thank you, Ms. Savakian. Hello, parents. My name is Mrs. Ives. I am a counselor at the high school level here in Capistrano Unified School District. I am at Dana Hills High School, and I will be talking about the continuation into high school and the academic and self-regulation skills that we are working on there. So first, if we look at high school and what's being learned, kind of the big component here at the high school level is we call this the pruning stage. And what I mean by that is it's use it or lose it. So at this point in the prefrontal cortex development, we are hardwiring those skills that we are utilizing all the time. And so we're strengthening those neural connections to making our brain more efficient and allowing to be faster in making those connections. But at the same time, any kind of skills or connections that we're no longer utilizing, those are being pruned away from the gray matter. They're taking up space that we don't need. And so the brain is really fine-tuning what information is important to us and what skills. And so we want to encourage that. We are also preparing for change during this adolescent time. The brain is very adaptable in focusing on those things. And like I said, creating those connections that are going to make it easier for us to think and develop into that cognitive development and more independent thinking. So some of the academic skills that we see here at the high school level are what you see on the screen. I'm not necessarily going to read all of those to you, but really what's going on here is we're continuing the skills that we started in middle school. So as Mrs. Avakian said, we have a reminder binder maybe at middle school, and now we're going to call it an organizational planner. Some of the key things that we are learning is how to be engaged and multitask. So we're listening to our teachers and taking notes at the same time, and really identifying what it is about the teacher that we need to get. So hopefully we're not writing down every single thing the teacher is saying, but we're learning how to paraphrase and what is the important content that I should be getting from my teacher, and really focusing on those listening skills. Remembering that we're not only developing these skills for success here at the high school level, but now we're focusing on keeping those skills into the future, to go on to whatever post-secondary education that they're going to plan on doing, or whatever college and career. Keeping up to date with our homework, again, having that organizational system. So with that planner, like we talked about, keeping track of our due dates. And really important during this time is to follow a routine, that when they come home, so they have their school structure, and that when they come home, that routine is still followed. They should have some daily and weekly objectives into place. And in regards to the routine at home, we like to use a skill called chunking. And basically what that is it's not only taking larger things and breaking them down into smaller pieces, like we saw with elementary and middle school, but really it's forming a routine at the home when you get home from high school. So for example, let's say a student is at school until 3 o'clock, they come home. We do encourage that they take a break. They've been at school for 7 hours, whether in person or on screen. And so take a half hour and have a snack and watch some TV or whatever it might be. But then let's say at 3:30, they're going to start their homework. Chunking is where you determine working in an amount of time versus an amount of work. The brain is a muscle and we can train it on how we want it to focus. And that's a really important key during these high school years. And what I mean by that is if I sit down as a student and I've got an English essay to write and I have 40 problems in math and a science project to work on, that can be overwhelming. But instead, if I say, okay, at 3:30, I'm going to start my homework and for 20 minutes, I'm going to work on my math. It's an amount of time. That's something our brain can grasp and it can say, well, I can do anything for 20 minutes. And so you sit down, literally set a timer, whether on the phone or an old-fashioned kitchen timer, and set it for 20 minutes and you just work for 20 minutes. And when that timer goes off, you stop and take a break. 5, no more than 10 minutes. And then you go back to your work and you can continue on the same subject or change subjects. That part is up to the student. But the point being is you're working off of time rather than amount of work. And that's something the brain can grasp. Research has shown that students actually finish their homework much more effectively and efficiently in using this kind of method. So that's a routine that we would like to recommend. Procrastination is always something we're going to be working on. As we mentioned earlier, the prefrontal cortex is, still developing through the early to mid 20s. But I'm sure those of us even older than that know that procrastination continues to be a lifelong learning skill, but we want to encourage that. Also, we want to make sure that we are getting distraction free. We know that the brain is good at multitasking, but we need to be focused on what it is in that moment that we are working on. So we want to make sure that we're unplugged and powered down and all of those kind of things. Managing stress is going to become a key component. We're going to come back to that one in a couple of slides later in dealing with self-regulation, but there are some apps that I'll mention and some other strategies that will be helpful in managing stress at this level. Creating a functional study station is making sure that our kids, especially in this time of being online, that they are set up to work. They shouldn't be laying in bed in their bedrooms. We really need to have them sitting up and be prepared for learning and be in that constant state. And of course, using technology. Like I said, let's use those phones for good. I'm going to go over some apps that I'll talk about later in dealing with managing stress. But again, using our phones for timers and for those kind of things, making the technology work for us. And one thing we mentioned earlier, and I don't have it on the slide, but I also want to talk about that this is the time that we are continuing to work for self-advocacy. As Mrs. Avakian mentioned, at middle school, we're starting to see a little bit of the independence, but at high school, we really need to encourage that. So 9th and 10th grade, we're kind of letting those training wheels off, and hopefully by junior and senior, they're riding that bike on their own. And they need to learn how to communicate with their teachers and self-advocate and utilize that positive self-talk that they can do this. So how can you help as a parent? So again, what we want to look at is that rest. I know we've mentioned that already, but again, as Mrs. Avakian mentioned, sleep is a really important thing, and these kids are staying up way too late to try to get things done. And so time management is going to become a really important part in helping them. Encouraging that structure and routine at home, like I mentioned before, and so helping them set with that up, having them a place that they are focused on, helping them keep that time, and then getting to work and having those expectations. And do set those expectations early and have some rewards or consequences related to it. So they need to have that kind of understanding of responsibility and accountability in these stages. And obviously they're going to need some assistance from their parents in figuring that out. Having those objectives and emphasizing that phones down. Again, the distraction-free environment, that is where as you as a parent really do play an important role in making sure that they are distraction-free and working and focusing on their homework at that time or whatever chores or routine they need to be in. Although they are becoming more independent, we are still wanting, obviously, parents to check in on them. I'm sure, as we know, we want to always trust our children, but we certainly still need to follow up just in case we're not getting all the facts. And so we want to make sure that you are checking in, keeping an eye on those grades. Again, you can see that's a hyperlink to understanding how to set up your own Canvas. We're not going to click on that again here since we saw that, but know that that's another hyperlink for you. But we also want to make sure that we are praising them as well. So even if you do have something you need to work with them on or talk to them, start with the positive. Hey, I noticed you didn't have any missing assignments in science this week. That's great. And then you can talk about what things we're wanting to work on. So we want to always start with the strength and that positive, and then we can go into the things that we're working on as well. And yes, it is really important that we are still continuing to do things together as a family. There needs to be that rapport and collaboration as they continue to develop. You are their role models, and they need to see that, and they need to see that you're also still fun and not just a disciplinarian, although it's a nice balance between those two things. So then as we look at some self-regulation at high school level, again, life is going to be full of things, and we're focusing on not only this high school level, but beyond. And as a part of that, we want them to recognize their own emotional states, and most importantly, how they're going to deal with those emotions. So at the high school level, kind of what we call balance, and that time management is a really important thing. When you start to look at their class schedules and their extracurricular activities, it's really important that we help in that decision-making of finding a balance and what truly is their passion and focusing on those things. It is not necessary for them to take 5 AP classes and be in band and be an athlete and be ASB vice president. It's finding a balance of what about those things are important and doing those things. And so finding if I'm, more of an English history person, then maybe that's where my APs are. And I stay at the, just the college prep level for my science and math. And I really enjoy being in band, but I've always been, I'm hopefully going to play soccer in college. Well, then focus on the athletics and those kind of things. So finding that balance, and as parents, helping them to determine those balances and what their passions are. We also are looking at how, like I said, to address the stress during this time, keeping in mind that stress is normal. Stress is actually healthy. Our bodies are designed to adapt to stress. It's what allows for us to be able to cope. It's when our stress stays at a high level and doesn't come back down that we start to get concerned. And so that's where we need to look at things like calming apps. And so we, again, utilize that technology for our students. There's a lot of apps on their phones that can help with stress management. And so we can utilize that. There's things like gratitude that we want to focus on. So what are we grateful for? And not everything is negative. Maybe I'm not doing so well in math, but I am really doing well in English and history. So finding your gratitude, things that you're grateful for, and keeping you in the moment. Mindfulness, we've talked about quite a bit in this presentation, but that is a key thing that we, as far as relating to keeping our stress down and coping, is to be in that moment, to not think too much about our future or things that are in the past, but what am I doing right now in this moment that I can work with. And a part of that is also understanding what we're doing during this stage in the brain development is learning what we can control and what we can't. And really understanding that acceptance of the things that I can control, I'll work on. If I need to work on my time management, if I need to work on my organization, if I need to work on making sure I'm in a structured routine at home to do my homework. But things I can't control is how much homework I get. That's my teachers. Or what my parents are requiring of me, like chores and those kind of things. You can't necessarily control those, but you control how you respond. And so this is an important key in self-regulation at this level. And then lastly, if we look at how you can help with that, is what I just talked about, is helping using those skills. Okay, so watching, being a role model, and helping those students to learn those self-soothing skills and how we keep ourselves calm. I mean, as adults, we certainly have our own amount of stress with what we have going on. And so being a role model on how do we calm ourselves down and how do we stay in the moment. We want to encourage the practice of what we call daily emotion fitness exercises. So as I mentioned, those are things like gratitude, but breathing exercise. We've mentioned even as early as elementary, they're learning those things, but to have breathing exercise, practicing kindness, enjoying the little things in life, getting out and looking at nature, self-compassion, giving ourselves some grace, and of course that mindfulness, as I mentioned, and developing a philosophy of acceptance and just being okay with who we are, that we don't need to be perfect at everything we do, and just being accepting of as we grow and as we develop, we learn more about ourselves and we accept those things. The controlling what we can, that you'll notice that's a hyperlink, so you can click on that when you have access to the presentation. And that'll lead you to an article that talks more about that. And lastly, we want to make sure that we're aware of our feelings. And so that is a hyperlink that I want us to look at. So when we click on that, you'll see this feeling wheel comes up, and it might be a little small there, but hopefully you can blow that up when you see the presentation. But the big key here is that understanding that there is a huge amount of feelings. It's not just being happy or sad, because even within those, are we happy because we're content, because we're playful, because we're confident, because we've been respected, or because we're truly joyful? Just realizing that feelings are much more than just one thing. And when somebody's sad, what does that mean? Were they hurt? Are they lonely? Those kind of things. And so we really want to understand the breadth of feelings that our students are undertaking. And so when they say, well, I feel sad, what does that really mean? And understanding the deeper meaning behind those feelings so that we can help address their needs. And so I think we're going to move into the end and some of the resources that we talked about. So Ms. Morris, I think I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Sides. We have created a list of resources for you all to use at home. You can access the list by scanning this QR code with your phone camera or by visiting the websites. Pull that up for you. One of the links on the resource page, if you click on this, is a PDF copy of the slides. And in that PDF, you'll be able to click on all of the hyperlinks through all the pages that you just saw. And if you have any questions about your child, please reach out to your child's school counselor with any questions that you have. And this concludes our presentation. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you all.